Hello, my name is Matt Davis, and I wrote this program that you're seeing a demonstration of right now. If you're interested in this program after you've seen the demo, then look in the information section of this video, and then you might have to click on Show More, but you will see there a download link for the program. When you go to the download page, I would recommend that you watch the video on how to download. Because I am not a professional or well-known software developer, your system will probably object to you downloading programs from me from the internet, and the video on how to download shows you some of the stuff that comes up and what you need to do to bypass that. Alright, so what I want to show you today is how the expected value feature of the What If button works. I'm going to show you that by replaying a couple hands that I played in the World Series of Poker in the summer of 2019. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So when you're in the program and you want to do hand replay, you want to make sure you check this box. And then you can do some setup of players, so I'll show you how to do a little bit of that. One of the things that I like to do is set the style from my opponent. In this hand that I'm going to be showing you, the key opponent is over here in the player 8 spot. So if I click on the set VPIP/PFR to set style, I can put their player number, which was 8, and then I can put their voluntary put money in the pot percentage in, which was 50% of the time, which is pretty loose, and their pre-flop raising percentage, which was 19% of the time, which is pretty aggressive. We were playing 9-handed. This was based on a fairly small sample size of only 16 hands. And then I can click on apply and it will set their style. And one of the things that's kind of key here is they're set to be a little bit bluffy. So a super bluffy player would have a bluff aggression number of 1. So this player is definitely on the bluffy side. Alright, so the hand I'm going to show you today came from a daily deep stack at the World Series of Poker. It was a $250 event. We were in level 3, and the blinds were 100, 200 with a 200 big blind ante, so I've got all that set. And you can put numbers in here like the 200 ante and then choose set ante. That's how I did those pieces. Alright, and then let's go ahead and jump into the hand. So I had 10, 8 of clubs, so I select that from this panel. And then I was under the gun +1. This player was in the small blind. So let me advance the button over to here so that they will be the small blind player right here. I've already set my card, so I'll go ahead and hit deal. This player folded. I decided to limp in, giving myself the opportunity to call a raise if I needed to. So did that. This player called. This player called. The small blind limped in, and the big blind checked. Alright, so one of the other things I should show you on setup, they actually have the wrong amount of chips for this player. They started with 16,700, so after calling the 200, they would be in for 16,500, and that's what their stack would be behind, sorry. So if I type that number in here and I double click on their chip stack, it'll change it to that. So we got that taken care of. Alright, so here we go, 5 ways to a flop, and that flop had the ace of clubs and a 10 and an 8, giving me 2 pair and a backdoor flush draw. So I was pretty happy with that flop, of course. And then the way the action played out on that hand is this guy let out for 400. So I can type in his bet amount, 400. I'm sorry, first I need to hit deal, get that flop out there. And if you just look at my left card right away, then over here it'll tell you that I have almost a 90% chance of having the best hand in this 5-way pot. But if I let a turn card come off and we're still all here, then my equity drops way down to 62%, which is still decent, but that's a really big drop off from where it is now. So giving a free card seems like a bad idea on this board against this many players. But free card wasn't an option because the small blind did lead out for 400. And then this player folded, and if we look at where I am now, looking at those same numbers, now it's only 80% chance I have the best hand given that he bet out. But I still have this really big drop in equity if I let a card come off. So I thought I should raise to at least get these two guys out of the pot with draws they might have. You know, for example, if one of them has Jack Queen, that's a double gut shot draw. So they might easily call with that for sure if I just let it go for 400. So I decided to make it 1200. So let's look at our first use of the what if button. So if I click this, it'll say, what if I bet 1200? What if I raise to 1200? What would happen? So the key numbers over here in this output area that you want to look at are expected value. So there's the expected value of calling the 400, which is 3.4 big blinds with a return on investment of 170%. So very, very profitable to call with this hand rather than folding. However, if I decide to raise, then that expected value goes up to 6.17 big blinds. And so if you just look at the extra 800 I put in for the raise, there's a return on investment of that amount of 69.2%. So we got the calling value in a way in there, but now I'm getting extra value by raising this strong hand. So if a raise has a positive expected value and it's bigger than calling, then it's saying it's profitable to raise in that situation. I think I probably should have raised for more than 1200, to be honest with you, because these guys might still call with a queen jack, and this player certainly would call with a draw like queen jack. He's going to be getting very good odds, over 3-1 on his money, I think almost 3.5-1. So what did happen is this player folded, and then player 8 over here called. And then the turn was the 9 of clubs. And when I first saw that 9 of clubs, I was pretty thrilled with that because it added a flush draw to my hand, which is already pretty strong, right? So if we mouse over this guy right here, we see that there's still a 74.73% chance we have the best hand, and if we don't, now we have outs to the flush. So I'm feeling pretty happy to see that 9 of clubs, but then something very surprising happened to me. Player number 8 bet in for all his chips, which is 15,300, over 4 times the size of the pot for that bet. So that was a bit shocking. And all of a sudden, you know, a hand like 2 pair shrinks up a bit when somebody goes all in for 4 times the size of the pot. So I had to think about what to do here for a while. Of course, the number one thing that pops into my head is being beat. And so I thought about Jack Queen as the obvious way I could be beat. And it does make sense that he could have Jack Queen and have called on the flop, even bet out. He's fairly bluffy, so betting a double gut shot makes sense. And then, you know, why not bet the nuts, right? But what seemed weird to me is if you just made the nuts, why would you bet so much that you're going to make almost everybody fold there? So that seemed very fishy to me. So it is somewhat of a newer thing for people to overbet pots with good hands. If you were going to look at that, then they would tend to be pretty polarized and either be bluffing or have the nuts. So if they have Jack Queen, then I'm beat. But what if they have clubs? What if they have Jack 9, 7 9, and made a pair and decide to turn that into a bluff? Those are things that could happen. Maybe even a hand like King Jack that was a gut shot at first is now a 2-way straight draw. So ultimately I just thought, man, I can't imagine the person making the nuts and just blasting me off the hand. So I decided to call. But when we're using the software, we could look at that from an expected value point of view. So what if? So when we get that calculation, there's no point in looking at the raise part of that because a raise isn't possible. The other player is all in. But the expected value of calling is 3.91 big blinds, positive, so it's profitable. But the return on investment is pretty small, 5.1%. That kind of makes sense in a way because the bet is so massive. We have to call a massive amount to win this little amount, so our return on investment is pretty small, but it is positive. Now let's look at the kind of hands the computer's saying the player could have. It says they could have Jack Queen, which would have us beat. However, that hand didn't make a lot of sense to me. It says they could have aces, but it's hard for me to believe that a bluffy player would just limp in with aces after 3 people had already limped in front of them. Ace 10, ace 9, ace 8 are maybe reasonable hands in that person's range, but would they really bet 4 times the pot with them? I could have Jack Queen, right? And one of the, I guess, the lackings of this program is it doesn't consider what kind of hands they would make such a big bet with. It just considers what kind of hands would they bet, and it doesn't consider the size. But I would consider it kind of strange to make such a big bet with those 2 pair hands. And then there's some draw hands in there. The ace jack, the ace 7, those are 2-way. Now those are made hands, but some players will turn their made hands into a bluff or just bet them because they think they're strong because they have the ace and a draw. 9 jack, which would have been open-ended on the flop and is now a pair and open-ended. 7 9, same situation. So if you look at the expected value, it's positive. If you look at just the chance we're ahead of the player, it's 47%. So generally, if you're somewhere around 50% that you're good, you would want to call. You would want to look at your river equity and consider cards to come. The fact that they could be on a draw and the fact that they could be made and we could make our draw seem to be balancing out. So our equity on the river is almost the same as our equity right now on the flop. So again, it looks like kind of a close call here according to the computer. But again, the computer's not considering the size of the bet, and the size of the bet would maybe rule out some of the hands that it's putting in their range. So I felt like it was right at the time, just felt it was too fishy that they would be doing this with a strong made hand, and if they did, I had outs to the 10, the 8, and the club. So by the way, it turns out this player had Jack 9, a blank came on the river, and I got off to a good chip start in this tournament. Alright, so that shows you a little bit about how the what if feature works. So we're going to go ahead and move on to hand number 2. Alright, moving on to the second hand. In this one I want to show you how the what if works for pre-flop. In this particular hand I was in level 13 of a daily deep stack $250 tournament at the World Series. We were on the bubble. The big blinds were 2,000, 4,000 with the big blind ante of 4,000. I have set here use bubble read, which affects the way people might play near the bubble and adjust their style a little bit depending on their style and their stack size. Key player here was player 9, who was a little bit of a kind of average tightness, but kind of a passive player. And then myself was the other key player. So we were close to the bubble. We had just taken a break, and over the dinner break I was thinking, well, I'm a little bit short stacked here with 51,000. The average stack's probably around 120,000 at the time. And I was thinking, alright, I should probably play pretty tight here. I have a stack that can make the money, bubbles anytime now, but then again, I don't want to pass up a good opportunity to build chips and have a better run at going deep in this tournament. So that was kind of my thought process coming back. This was the second hand after break that we're going to look at. So the button was 2 to my left. We were playing 10-handed, and I had these 2 black jacks. So the way the play went was folds from the first 3 players, and then this player 2 to my right went all in for 56,000. So that happened. This guy folded. I looked down at my pocket jacks and I thought about, what I just said to myself at the break, and I thought, well, if I'm truly and honestly trying to make a run at doing well in this tournament, I can't be folding a hand like pocket jacks. This is a spot where I have to go for it. But what if I had the computer software available, or what if I was just thinking about it in a more in-depth way? So what if I decided to call here? So here's the bit of a surprise. Again, ignore the raising part here because I don't have enough chips to raise. All I can do is call. But the expected value of calling that bet is actually negative 1.78 big blinds, which means it is not profitable. That is a loss of chips in the long run to call in this spot, and the ROI is a negative 12.4%. So why is that? Why is it that I should be folding jacks here instead of calling them? So if we investigate that by looking at this player's range, the most common hands for them would be ace-king, which I'm flipping with, queens and kings and aces, which I'm in big trouble too, and possibly they could have pocket jacks and do that too, and we're chopping there, which isn't that great. So if you look at the situation, it's pretty bad. If this player is actually passive, they're not going to be shoving a lot of hands here on the bubble, and best case scenario, I'm flipping, and then all the rest of the time I'm kind of crushed. So kind of interesting to see that. The other thing that should be factored in, maybe not a huge factor, but a factor, there's still 4 players who haven't acted on their hands yet. So these guys, even if I happen to be lucky and flipping against this guy, why can't one of these guys wake up with queens? It could happen, right? So a little bit of a surprise to me here, but it looks like the proper play would have been to fold jacks, and I think I had kind of psyched myself out with that, like, well, I'm going to play good hands. And for sure, if everybody had folded to me, I should be shoving here. Maybe even if this guy limps in or something, I should be shoving here. But when a passive player goes all in near the bubble, when they have a stack that could be a cashing stack to them, jacks isn't the hand that you wish it was. So there's a look at how the what if button can help you make some pre-flop decisions. If this player had limped in, then when I click at the what if, then I would be wanting to look at the expected value of raising and see how profitable it would have been for me to shove. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Let's play that hand one more time. Let's give ourselves those jacks. But this time, let's suppose everybody folds to us and we're thinking about putting in all our chips. Let's see how that would be. So 15.6% return on investment and a positive expected value. So it would have been a reasonable thing for me to shove with the jacks, but calling a passive player, that's a bad play. So this is one where I could have held on and made the money. I did call, by the way. His kings held up as you would expect, and I was out the door thinking I had been coolered, when really, turns out I'd probably made a bad decision. Alright, thanks for checking out the video. Hope you are interested in trying the program. Again, look at the information section of this YouTube video for the download link. You might need to click show more, and again, I would encourage you to watch the downloading video so you see the tricky parts about making that work. Alright, thanks again.